Welcome to Serial Podcast 9.
Oh, okay. Why don't you go first, then I go second, then Ryan does his thing, and then you introduce Satoshi.
Yeah, why don't we do what we always do, Gerard?
Hey, I'm Gerard DiPeralta.
And I'm Kevin Peterson.
And I'm Ryan Benoit, and this is Serial Podcast 9, episode probably 31.
Tonight we have a special guest. His name is Satoshi McKeown. Did I say that right?
Yeah, man, that's right. You got it right. You nailed it.
Okay. He's a young car guy in the scene in Lower Mainland. He also works for us. And he also has like 5 cars. So
only 4, man.
Yeah.
5's pushing it.
5? 4.
Oh, 4.
How many cars you got? Quick, rattle them off for us. What do you got?
Well, I currently have like 2 Toyota Crown Athlete 5s. I got like a Subaru Forester STI, and then I recently picked up an Infiniti QX4, a little 4x4 fun. Yeah,
It's got
I need to get
Gerard
rid of
written
2 of
all
them.
over it.
yeah, perfect SerialNine round lineup there.
So the question is, why did we choose to have Satoshi on the podcast? Of everyone that we could hypothetically invite, we invited Satoshi. And why is that? Who wants to answer that question?
I feel like
Why?
I feel like that was you wanted him on, Ryan.
Yeah, I wanted Satoshi on real bad.
Yeah.
So, short story, the reason I wanted Satoshi on is because I feel like Kevin and myself have reached a certain age, and Gerard is even like blowing past that age. We're all very old, and we just have like a hypothesis of what the young people do in the car world. Like we joke about Facebook groups or how you find out what you do, or like, oh, how are you going to build this? Where are you going to find your knowledge? And Gerard always jokes about like what type of oil people should put in a 1J and all that shit. And we don't actually know. Yeah, we don't actually know what it's like to be a young person in the year 2021 in the car scene, because like we're old now and we think we know all this shit about this, but like we're out of touch with what the young people are into. And I was out at SerialNine one day filming some shit, and Satoshi and I got into a pretty cool conversation about what it was like being young. And then he had viewpoints on like what it must have been like for us. And I just thought the whole thing was incredibly interesting, and I wished that was a podcast. So here we are. That's what we're doing. So
Right.
I don't know. Maybe we'll just rattle off questions for Satoshi to answer, and then
That's probably a good way to start.
But yeah. So I guess Gerard's first question. You should probably ask Satoshi where he goes to find oil for his engines.
SerialNine, bro.
That can't be the answer for every question.
I was gonna ask him, so what's your car experience? How long have you been into cars? How many cars have you owned, and what have you done to those cars? Because it seems like you're very into cars. Like you're not scared of like ripping apart complete interiors and like, coilovers and upper control arms and swapping brakes and, buying a car to get parts off of. Like that's a pretty car guy thing. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah. No, I don't honestly know where it would fall.
Oh wait, first of all, how old are you?
Just turned 22 in September, so I'm just getting into the game. Only been driving for like less than a decade, obviously. Probably been into cars like longer than I've really realized that I have been. Like just like going to like car shows and whatever, stuff like that. But no, I was pretty much like fully thought like driving standard cars was cool as I started getting closer to like being able to drive my own car. I don't know when the actual like JDM bug caught me, or like the sports bug caught me pretty quick after I started driving cars and whatever. So my first car was actually nothing too special. It's like a Mazda 3.
Yeah. What'd you do with your gauged ears and your flat bill hat and your shocker sticker? Where did those go?
Oh man, no, that phase didn't actually last too long. I totaled that car, so
You totaled a Mazda 3?
Oh yeah, fully, man.
How'd you do that?
Just like rear-ending someone. Nothing too crazy.
Okay. I was like, maybe you're like ripping it on a tailgate or
not
something.
paying attention.
The Mazda 3 is like the first I feel like there's a multiple people in my high school. It's like go to like kind of into cars. It's like a sporty looking hatch kind of, and then you get like the 5-speed model too, and like you just destroy the living shit out of it. Basically, perfect like first car to learn standard on too. But yeah, I only had that thing for like 6 months. Moved on to like a Mazda 6. Still didn't really know what I was doing, but like also standard because like I don't know why I chose standard, but I just thought it would be sick to learn. But then I started to actually like get into more sporty cars or whatever, and I started to realize like the world of JDM. One of my friends actually like introduced me to like JDM Subarus. He was like showing me how cheap bringing over like Legacies or Imprezas were. So that was my first like real car, I would say. It's like a JDM Impreza WRX. It's like a 2004. It's like a 2-liter turbo, 5-speed too. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely like where like my whole JDM bug like took off after that. Like you kind of get completely immersed into the world of it, like especially being in this day and age with like the internet. Mm-hmm. I feel like you search JDM Impreza and then all you see in your feed is that constantly.
Yeah, for sure.
So shit, that's a weird thing. So an algorithm tricked you into being into Japanese cars.
Into Subarus.
Like,
honestly,
that's
I
pretty
think
cool.
That's how it was. I definitely feel like that's like a big key element because it kind of like sends you down a rabbit hole of like crazy, weird JDM shit.
It's kind of funny your progression from like the Mazda 3 to the Subaru.
Yeah.
It's pretty like that's a pretty natural
linear.
Yeah. Like it's,
yeah,
that is. So they're all the like
same sort of people.
Yeah, your people. Yeah. It's in it. I think even more interesting is so like when you asked Gerard, you were like driving to find like car magazines, like VIP style shit from Japan and all the like.
Yeah, I had like subscriptions at like USA bookstore and stuff. Yeah.
So you were going out of your way. You had to like journey to go find this.
Dude, I used to look for those magazines.
Tricked into it by an algorithm.
yeah.
Just like, oh, I should look up the car that I have, and it's like, what? And then your feed just populates with all this shit.
Every single day you're bombarded with more JDM stuff.
I don't know. I feel like Instagram was already around by that time too. So like, of course, if you're looking on Instagram, like you're gonna get down that rabbit hole really quick. Because you want to like see what wheels look like, what it's going to look like on your car, like looking at kits or whatever. And then, I don't know, really sends you down that rabbit hole for sure.
So when did you put rally armor on your Subaru? No, I'm joking.
Oh man, never.
No,
I've always liked to keep my builds like minimalistic and clean. I don't know. I never went too crazy. I left that for the Mazdas. I kind of left that behind. Matured a bit once I moved to the Subaru, I think. And now I'm finally in my closer to final form with the Toyotas. I think.
Look, man, you got a long way to go. You said you're 22.
Exactly.
You're on a really good path. Like you found Toyotas at 22. Like that's great. Gerard's going backwards. He's fucking.
I mean, his most recent purchase was a Nissan. So.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, but I don't. Yeah, your boss is always talking about how great Nissans are. I mean.
Yeah,
I would do that to be in Gerard's good books too.
It's funny. Last weekend, Satoshi and I on a Saturday, randomly, like I found a G37S that was getting parted out, and I was like, "Yo, Satoshi, like you want a tranny?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, man." Like, because he needs one for the Crown, and then so we go and we're like pillaging this like G37. That was a G35S, sorry. But yeah, so like we're fully working inside on a Nissan, like on Saturday, getting trannies and consoles and clutch pedals and headers and so there's a lot of Nissan going on. I'm influencing hard.
Got to get out of there. We gotta get Kevin in there. Fucking.
I mean, he's already got 217 crowns. So
perfect.
I feel like I've done my work already.
The barrier of entry was to get the crown first for Kevin, and then went over Gerard.
But then he sat in the G35S, and he's like, "Yo, this thing's fucking nice, man."
Yeah.
Anyway,
I think I've always liked because in high school that was like a pretty obtainable car. It was like G35s, 350Zs.
Yeah.
I don't know, like all the kids kind of know, or it's like, oh yeah, man, that's like a fast car because like the only car we can afford.
Yeah.
It's like the best option, I guess, at that point in time too, right? So it's fairly common.
Yeah, for a high school car, like that shit ain't slow.
No,
Like,
for sure. I
way
mean,
faster than any car in my high school probably was. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Gerard now has the same taste as a high school student, which is amazing. All right. So do you have, this is I think an interesting thing because I feel like Kevin and Gerard and myself all have some ties to a certain era of Japanese car culture.
Right.
Satoshi, do you have a tie to any era of Japanese car culture? Like, what do you look for when, like looking at trends or like inspiration? Like what are the things that actually inspire you? Like,
It would have to be like the 90s, early 2000s, like drift scene in Japan. I definitely was super into like the S chassis and stuff, watching those guys in Japan, like N Style or like Team Burst and whatever, like those guys, like super like hardcore drift, like underground kind of subculture Japan, like drift scene kind of stuff. Like that definitely got me for sure.
We should probably say that Satoshi is half Japanese. I don't know if that actually matters, but like it's worth noting.
Yeah,
there's a little bit of a connection
I think it's fairly obvious, but
yeah. The part that threw me off was the last name, and I'm like, yo, that's his last name. Yeah. Well, that's cool. So then how did you even find out about 2000s? Like, because we all kind of lived through it at some point. I think that's fair to say. You would have been much younger in the 2000s or not born.
Yeah. I feel like the people that were like already kind of into cars during my high school era, maybe they had a very surface level of the JDM scene. And I feel like at that time, a lot of the cars that people were driving were the 90s, early 2000s cars. So everyone, like the classic car everyone would knew was like the Toyota Chaser. I always thought that was like the coolest car and like the only really Toyota that I knew. Like I feel like
I feel like at that time in life, like if you had any interest in anything, you could look it up and find out about it. Because like even when I started like trying to find my first car, I was looking it up and finding Japanese drift videos.
It's interesting to hear you call that a classic car, though. I will say that you're like, here's a classic car, and then I'm like, it doesn't feel like a classic car to me. That feels like a very I think Kevin once said like a few episodes ago, like a modern car for Kevin is still like a 10-year-old car. Like it's like I don't know.
Yeah, that's pretty fair.
Yeah,
like I have the newest car out of all of us.
Yeah,
with the truck, and even the
I honestly think you always have. Like, I don't think I've ever had a newer car than you. Maybe when I just got the Celsior, but no, because I swear, like you had the Civic at that point.
Yeah, I already had this brand new Civic, which is a 98.
98, but the Celsior was a 98.
Yeah, so. Yeah. Well, I mean, I had like I guess when I was 16 to 20, I had 60s and 70s cars. So like I started way back.
Yeah. Do you have any like family members who were like super into cars, Satoshi?
That's like pretty opposite end of the spectrum for me. Like my brother doesn't even drive a car, doesn't even have a driver's license. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of an anomaly for sure.
Yeah, you don't have like an uncle who like
no influences inside the fam.
No, not really.
Wow.
I mean, I'm sure like my uncles, they drove like whatever, like RX-7s back in the day. Like I feel like they kind of grew up in the 70s and stuff. So like it's much more attainable to buy a sports car like right out of high school or whatever. So they probably had something, but like for the most part, there's nobody like fully into cars who like rebuilds them, works on them, races them. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just me.
Yeah.
Follow-up question. When you need to do technical things to your car, where do you go to find information to do that?
Honestly, I rely pretty heavily on like old forums that people used to use. Like I've even seen Gerard like have old posts and like forums for Toyota stuff and stuff like that. You can kind of use like Facebook groups or whatever, but I find it's pretty like garbage. I kind of like hate using Facebook for the most part. But it definitely is
definitely
like
more
information.
hit than it's definitely more miss than hit on the Facebook groups.
What kind of oil do I use?
Yeah, no, that's a classic. Like, yeah, it's pretty brutal. But I feel like forums are partially like that too. But it's a lot easier to kind of like narrow down on what you need to figure out.
Yeah.
On Facebook, it's just like all the newest activity is just garbage usually, right? Like,
Yeah. And then you get kicked out of a Facebook group for sticking up for your pal. And then what do you do? Yeah, okay. I think that's an interesting thing. We all agree that Facebook is a dumb avenue for car building, yet it exists. Then my ponderance.
I think part of it too is like people are noobs. Like everyone wants to pwn a noob or whatever you want to call it. Like, you know what I mean? So like everyone's a noob at one point and then they learn, and then there's like always some person that's more noob than them. They're like, look at this idiot like asking about oil. Like I learned that like 6 months ago. So then they can like feel special because they know like what oil to use, or like, you know, they can offer some sort of 2 cents of like useless, incorrect information. But
also the guy with like all of the knowledge probably doesn't give a shit to like be posting it on Facebook when someone's asking a super basic question as well, you know?
Yeah, basic question. I mean, I definitely post a lot on Facebook, those forums, but like, yeah, if it's a really stupid question, I'm not going to answer it. But like legit questions, I've written like pages of stuff, you know what I mean? Like if I can offer some sort of knowledge in those areas or whatever.
But then that creates like a giant weird gap between like people starting out to like Gerard level.
I mean,
like questions, right?
It only
works. There's all those medium people in there who are gonna also give you shit and maybe tell you the wrong answer. So.
Right, and then it kind of only works when people, medium, I guess you want to call it, people are like, hey, like you should listen to this guy, because obviously, like if the people don't know who I am or what SerialNine is, they're just gonna be like, oh, this guy's talking out of his ass and thinking he knows everything. But like other people are like, oh, like that's Gerard from SerialNine, like you might want to listen to some of the stuff he's saying or whatever, right? So
yeah. I've seen people say that. They don't say it that way, they say it differently, and it's very funny how people respond to Gerard. Forgive him, Gerard, he knows not what he says, is I think one person.
Really?
And I was like, this is weird.
No, I was gonna say it's pretty funny like seeing Gerard pop up all the time on these like old forums and stuff. I don't know. Now that I know him and stuff, it's like definitely pretty hilarious to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like we were saying, we used to love forums. We used to post all the time.
Yeah. I don't know if it was just because that was like maybe the heyday of, you know, like I was young and fully committed to like spending every single waking hour on my car. But like that's when forums were the most popular. But like it did seem to this day to be like the best like medium.
Is the greatest forum for knowledge share. No, I agree. And it's funny to see that, but it's also funny to see that like we all collectively stopped using them, but there's still a reliance on it in the community, which is like a weird thing to kind of acknowledge, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, like if all those forums went down, like JZX Project and Zilvia and all those places that had all the information that you get from them still.
That actually happened to me though, like the Altezza or whatever. I forget what page it used to be. It was like an Altezza one, and it actually like shut down. And it was like such a good forum. It had so much resources, and then it just was gone one day, right? Because they didn't like renew the domain or like whatever.
Yeah.
One thing I was gonna say is all the photos. It sucks.
Photo
like,
bucket or whatever.
You've probably seen that post like on Driftworks or JZX Project, and like those are like legit build threads or like, you know, like stories of our drifting days. But like, yeah, they're all photoless now, so it's kind of weird because now you're just reading some story, imagining the things. But like, yeah, like it's kind of way sicker when there are photos. But yeah, all those photos are fully gone.
I feel like that's kind of me though. Like I was like I'm still super reliant on forums for like technical stuff, because like Facebook to me is like just more so marketplace based. Like I don't really like to dabble into it. I only really go there when I'm looking to buy something, more or less.
Dude, I swear marketplace was like the Hail Mary for Facebook or something. Like I swear, like I know people who fully deleted Facebook who got it back because of marketplace. You know what I mean? And now we're back on Facebook kind of thing. But like, and lots of other people who are like, man, if not for marketplace, I would delete Facebook. Like,
honestly, like that's the thing is there, as far as a resource for stuff, I definitely buy a lot of shit on marketplace for sure.
I don't even use Craigslist at all anymore, man. I never even look there.
It's honestly hard because like that's the thing. It's all shifted now, right? Like it's like if it's on Craigslist, it's probably going to be on Marketplace anyway. So like it doesn't really, you don't really need to look at Craigslist anymore.
Exactly.
I feel like you can trust people on Facebook too a bit more.
You know what that conversation was like, that whole, that was basically like Auto Trader,
or buy and sell.
Exactly. All that stuff. It was like, oh, like that's what it was. And then all of a sudden it became Craigslist. And it was like, well, if it's in the buy and sell, it's probably going to be on Craigslist. But then that wasn't totally true, because like the old people wouldn't use Craigslist. So you could find some hidden gems,
Yeah.
And now, but this day and age, like, I don't know if that is true. You know what I mean? Are there old people who are like, know Craigslist, but don't use Facebook? Like,
yeah, absolutely, man. For sure. Like, I guarantee you, like, I mean, my mom is obviously not the greatest example, but like someone of her, I don't know, caliber or whatever, maybe an older dude, they're on Facebook, but I feel like the marketplace is maybe like a level too much on, they can barely like do a post and like reply and shit. Then they're not like searching through marketplace, but like they still know how to use Craigslist. You know what I mean?
I mean, I feel like it's just as complicated.
Oh yeah. Except that they've already been using Craigslist for quite some time. And it's probably, honestly, marketplace is less complicated than Craigslist with all the filters and shit on Craigslist. It's not easy, but
yeah, no one's done any good like UX design on that site in ages, right? Like, and they never will. But anyway, so that's, I mean, going back to avoiding the part where we talk about old people trying to, like, we have a young person on the podcast where we're talking about how old people don't know how to use Craigslist. We're missing the point of the opportunity we have here. And it is funny, like you talk about like Photobucket not being there, and one of the reasons I think I would ever have a hard time letting go of the Dotalogic domain is because all of the photos that it's like this library of content that I've created, and then
it's like a host.
It's like that doesn't exist anymore, like that bit of a legacy. And it's interesting to watch all these, like, the sense of like all this knowledge can just be gone if someone's like, I don't want to pay for like a server or a domain anymore, like I'm done, and then like all that knowledge is just wiped out.
Yeah, man.
But then what type of person is using Facebook as their go-to means of like education?
Idiots.
Yeah, hopefully not any.
Nobody that works at SerialNine.
Yeah, can we rightfully say that no real car guy uses any Facebook group?
I mean, there are
technical knowledge.
I mean, I feel like there are sort of like little pockets.
There have to be, exactly.
There's
very
pockets
small
of good stuff,
technical pockets, but like
right?
the largest groups, you know what I mean, for the most popular cars are mostly full of garbage.
Yeah. But it requires so much like insider knowledge of like how things are and who people are. So it's like, I'm in a lot of Facebook groups that Gerard's in, and I know who Gerard is and what he's contributed to that scene. And then I know what other people with that chassis are and what they've contributed to that scene. And then otherwise, I'm just like easily writing people off based on like
for sure
fitment or something like, oh, your car looks like garbage, I'm not going to listen to you. But like,
it's like a hierarchy. It's like, okay, you have coilovers and wheels. Like you're still like, nobody fucking gives a shit. You've like maybe done an engine swap to a GTE. It's like, okay, cool. You probably just paid a shop. Like, but like you got radius fenders and like, I don't know, maybe you have like a CD009 or something in your car, or like you drift your Aristo or your GS, then maybe we'll like consider that you have some sort of like more than general interest in the actual car. You know what I mean? Like it's not just like, oh, I lowered this car, I put coilovers on this car, I swapped the engine on this car. It doesn't really matter that it's like an Aristo or a GS. It's just like could have been fucking Mazda.
Definitely seems like though it's a bit like clout based too. It's like if I know you from another avenue,
it's like vouching though. You know what I mean? It's like,
and then that's the only form. But then you have to be so invested in the scene to know like all the players.
You can go all day long and people are like, oh, this is the wheel size you need for a JZX90 on coilovers. And it's like, well, no, I mean, it could be fucking a multitude of different wheels, but there's not one wheel size, or there's not like one coilover brand that's the best. Like but like everybody's just gonna say BCs. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Boo.
until somebody
Boo.
can justify why they said BC, then nobody's listening to any of those people.
Right.
I mean, at least I'm not. Or like,
So then, Satoshi, you're fairly early on in your car world endeavor, and how do you know who you're gonna like believe when you're like?
I don't know. I feel like I look at it like from a broader perspective. So maybe I'll like search up on the internet first, try to find old forums or like other information, and maybe I'll like cross-reference it to what I find on Facebook as well. Maybe that's more so how I deal with it. It's like definitely a lot more difficult because I feel like I'm taking pieces from like old forums that have like no photos because like it's not supported anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm also taking pieces from like whatever this guy's saying in these Facebook groups. Like I definitely have to like piece it together. There's no like one avenue to go to for
it's
sure.
like a pro and con list. Like, does this match? Yeah. Does this match? No, these are wrong.
Well, like
this
it's like
no, that's totally how it is. But 100% how it is to this day. Like
especially with like research.
Yeah, especially with like JDM stuff, man. Like
exactly.
Like you're going to wherever you can to find the little bit like of information that you need. Like if it's in Russian, like whatever, man. Like,
exactly.
Enough, like it doesn't matter, right? Like whatever you can get.
Yeah, the wire colors are still the same.
Yeah,
exactly.
I feel like at this point, Gerard should know how to speak Russian, though. He loves Russia so much. Okay, well, that makes sense. So, which actually brings me to my next point. When we were talking about this in the shop, you said maybe a controversial thing, but you felt that it was much easier for the people that came before you, like, and you kind of said based on like how much things were worth, the cost, like the cost of things and all like the knowledge. And it's funny because I think like older guys probably feel like younger guys, like, oh, we've went ahead and paved the way for you. But then in that instance, when we had that conversation, it felt like the younger guys were being like, man, you all had it easy. Like, you don't even know what it's like today.
I could totally understand that because it's like if I had every pair of rims that I ever had for my Corolla still, I'd have $100,000 in rims. But it's like
rims or wheels.
I just pictured a shed full of lips, and I was like, "Oh man,
yeah."
I'm just fucking with you.
Kevin's flipping me there. Because Kevin's like, I got all the lip widths in a shed somewhere. $100,000 of lips.
Of lips, yeah.
No faces.
Anyways.
Anyway, go on.
No, I'm just basically it's like you can't predict what's going to be super valuable in the future. And also like, there was a time where, you would sell something you didn't need anymore for a reasonable value at that time. But now it's worth 10 times that. And it's like, well, if I only would have known and I could have stored it forever, then, and the same goes with the cars, it's like, well, if I would have known that now A86 Shell would have be worth $20,000, then I probably wouldn't have just wrecked them so much,
Yeah. Like, how many X7s have we thrown away? And X7s are like $5,000 right now for like a shitty one. It's like, I was throwing away 5, 6, 7 X7s.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't buy an X7 that cost more than $1,000. That was my like thing. It was like an X7 should cost $1,000.
Yeah. So I think like personally, I see it like you guys lived through the era of like the 90s. Early 2000s, and then I'm like coming in after that's already passed, and then now all these cars are like well known, so everyone wants them. So I have this huge list of like dream cars, and say if I was in your guys' feet in your generation, I probably would have had those cars and driven them and moved on to another one, say like whatever S chassis and stuff. But coming in now, it's more so like, okay, which one do I want to be the dream car that I'm going to buy?
Because it's such a big step.
Yeah,
hang on though. Such a big I want to know. Tell me your list. I want to know because this is actually interesting.
It's kind of hard to just put it solely on like a top 10, but I like most of the S chassis. Like I probably would have owned if I lived through that era. Like whatever, like really like S13s. I think they're sick, like S14s, like definitely jump around to which ones that I like. I would have loved to own like a JZX 100 or 90, but like coming in now, I'm not even going to look at them. So they were like 15K even when I was like just kind of learning about them. Like to me, that was too much. 110s would be sick. Like Skylines are sick. Like, I don't know, all the cars like in the 90s, 2000s would have been like sick to own. I don't know, like rear wheel drive, anything that drifted really.
So now you have a crown. Why do you have a crown?
Honestly, it was the closest thing I could get to. Like I kind of wanted a JZX 100. So the crown is like the cheapest, closest thing that I could get to that, I guess, in a sense. Still 1JZ GT. So it's like pretty good. Shares a lot of suspension with like the JZX or whatever. And so like it's what I could get more or less, right?
But the kind of cool thing is that like it's almost reversed, because like I feel like obviously the masses think the 100 is kind of sicker. I mean, the 100 is a great car by all means for sure, but like the crown is still more exotic. You know what I mean? Like to a lot of the US guys, like they're not as, it's not as commonplace to see like a super sick crown. Like you see like definitely the crowns that you probably do see on the internet are pretty crazy, but like there's not as many of them. And it's kind of like a weird thing. Like, you search up like drifting crown, there's probably like 3 that are like really well known. Whereas like there's like hundreds and, hundreds of like chasers, but like it's almost kind of sicker because if you did a crown properly, it would probably stand out and be more of a prized car than a 100 would.
Oh, so
fully. It's almost like a double-edged sword. Like, I got.
I mean, one thing I will say though is like all of Satoshi's cars are kind of like SerialNine cars too. They're like exactly. It's like the crown instead of the 100. It's like you could sell all those cars and get a 100 if you really cared. But it's like, or I could have 5 cars that people don't really know about, but they're all kind of sick anyway.
Yeah. I mean, even as you were saying that, I was like, that's a very Gerard thing to be like, I'll pick the car that's like kind of slept on more than the car that
it's kind of weird to justify. Like, I don't know. Maybe you have the same sort of like mindset as me, but like, I can't justify that extra $15,000 for the nameplate or I don't even know what it is about that car that people think is so great, but like, it's definitely
the steering rack.
It's definitely not $15,000 worth of clout, or like it's not. So, but I think
like as much as I like all those like super hyped up cars, like all the S chassis or whatever, of course I'm gonna like them. Everyone liked them. Everyone's made a million parts for them. Everyone's done it a million ways. Like, of course I'm gonna like them. But I don't know. I'd rather find the like untouched weird shit that's like half the price, quarter the price. Totally. That's definitely like the mindset, I think.
I mean, with that said, I'd love to build an S chassis, honestly, but
for sure.
How much is that going to cost?
I'm surprised at the cars that you actually listed. I thought you were going to say like RX-7s and Supras, and that you did say Skylines. But then I thought about it. I was like, oh, we have owned most of those cars, like between the people on this chat. And we probably didn't pay a ton for them. And then I was like, oh, yeah, we did fuck up everything for you. So I do understand.
Honestly, hearing the way you just said it, I never really thought about it that way. I just assumed we were talking about like building cars. And like, I was like, there's no way it's harder for me to build the car than for you to build the car. But for you saying like, oh, like those cars were actually attainable back then, like absolutely, man. Like,
dude, when I heard you saying that, all I was thinking was like housing. I was just like,
same thing.
Where it's like, oh yeah, man, if I was just 20 years earlier to the game, like it would have been affordable, but now it's not. You know?
Why wasn't I around for that?
But it is totally true. Like, I mean, like shit, all my friends had FCs and FDs and S14s and like at one point we had JZX 90s and like fuck, I mean, how many of our friends right now have 100s? Like, literally like all those cars, like we definitely did live that era and do sort of still live that era. But
now, Satoshi, that you said that, I'm like, oh, we should have just got a guy on here that loves FRSs, and then he could have told us But because and now I feel bad. I was like, oh yeah, we ruined everything for you for sure.
Yeah, I guess like that part of it
Scorched earth is what we did.
Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of like newer cars that are coming out, like the G35s, 350Zs, like those are obtainable, but like they're definitely not the same classes as like the golden era, like Japanese.
Yeah, they don't have that
right?
romantic. They're not like romanticized in video games, and I mean maybe the 350Z is, but like there's no fucking video game that gives a shit about a G35. Like
nobody should give a shit about that car. Fuck that car.
I don't know, man. They're pretty tempting these days. Gerard's got me.
Yuck.
I was gonna ask, is there any like media, like when you were younger, did like movies or like television or video games get you into cars? Or
yeah, like I was still born in like 99, and I have like 2 older siblings who were born like in the early 90s. So definitely a lot of like influence in say like Fast and Furious or whatever, like that was still around. It's still like a decent part of my life, but I was just a lot younger than probably you guys were when it came out, right?
I was in high school or like university.
I still watch like Initial D and stuff too. Like definitely still probably this similar like media you guys did, but I just found it in different ways or at different like timelines.
At a younger age, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it still did influence me like quite a bit, I would say. Yeah. So that's probably like why I'm still kind of like stuck on the 90s era, because like partially that's like what I grew up with, but like now I'm kind of in like the later era of cars. So it's like kind of weird.
Yeah. It's crazy to think. So you were born in 99 and we did this. It was Fast and the Furious came out in 2001. So Fast and the Furious movies have been being made the entirety of your lifespan. It's like they I feel like Bane and being like, oh yeah, you talking about like I was born in the darkness, man. Like you didn't find the light. You're Bane in this situation.
You merely adapted to car culture. I was born in car culture.
Yeah, you were. Fuck, man.
That's funny.
Break all of our backs. That's weird. So do you have a lot of friends that are into cars, or is like
honestly, like I feel like a lot more people in my generation drive less and are like less interested in blowing money on that kind of stuff, because like also living in Vancouver, like everything's so expensive. So like generally, like if you have a hobby, you're pretty hyper focused on that as well. So no, not really. Like I do have some friends that are in it, but like my core friend group in high school, like they might say they like cars, but they're definitely like not buying them, not driving them. Yeah, they're not working on them or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm pretty one off with that too.
That's interesting. Kevin,
it's pretty well established that people after high school don't really hang out with their core group of friends anyway. So just ditch those losers. Fully jump into the cars.
I can actually. It's funny. Leading up to this, so I'm back in Regina right now, and I went and hung out with the few guys left from the car scene when I started, like really got into cars. None of them are my high school friends. They're all like
our friends.
Dudes that they're all my car friends. Yeah, man. I went to high school and all my friends fucking talked about sports. And then as soon as I found car guys that I could talk about cars with, I was just like, deuces. And it was just, that was my life after that. So I don't know how to tell you this. Like, you're going to say goodbye to your friends at one point. Like, yeah, I'll keep a few of them, like 3, and then the real good ones. But if you, because I can't even imagine being into cars and not having the people into cars around it. Like, so shout out to you for doing it by yourself, I guess. Like that's
well, I mean, like I've been in the car scene like now for whatever. I've been driving cars for 3-4 years, like cooler cars. So I definitely have like picked up car friends or whatever, but like, still like, I feel like I'm in that transition of like learning like, oh shit, like all these people don't care about cars as much as me, or like, I can't really like, it's like a lot harder to, I guess, I don't know, have stuff in commmen with them. All you think about is cars.
It's very much like a drug addiction, because like honestly, like you're so far in.
It's not like a drug addiction.
Listen.
All right,
you're so far into it, and you're so like like he said, hyper focused on it. And like you do car shit and you go pick up parts and you go do car things with your car friends and this and that. And then all of a sudden you kind of look around and you're like, well, shit, like all my friends are these new car guys. And it's like, where'd all my other fucking high school friends go? It's like, you were so focused on the cars, you didn't even realize that like the rest of the shit was like gone.
Oh, you know I made a conscious choice.
Oh, really? Yeah. I was just like, cars, like, you're not into cars, like, fucking see you later.
I would never say it's like a drug addiction, though. I would just say that
a bunch of all my high school, like, I feel that like me and my buddy Matt were so into cars that we dragged like 4 dudes with us who all ended up getting into cars I was fortunate that like a lot of my high school friends were into cars. Like we were all into cars together for quite some time after high school. But yeah, that sort of tapered off maybe 5 to whatever years after high school. Yeah.
We were all pretty heavy into cars. And that was honestly, I think, why we were friends in high school.
None of my friends in high school were like, they maybe dabbled a bit and they like played around with the idea. They loved sports. And it was like a point in my life where it was like, if I wanted to hang out with them, I had to go sit down and like suffer through watching sports.
Not a fucking chance. I had no sports friends.
Yeah, they weren't even sports friends. They were my friends, but that was what they were into. So like you're talking about going to pick up car parts. They were playing fantasy football. And I over here was like, some of them were kind of into cars or liked the idea of it, but I was like trying to build cars. But then when I met like the Jesse Exners and the Jordan Halls and all those people, I was just like, yo, I can sit around and talk about cars with someone for like 6, 8, 12 hours, go on trips with them and like live this life and nobody ever gets bored of it. I was like, fuck, I'm going to go do that. Like that's way fucking better than like hoping that like I get to make a joke between like halftime in a fucking football game, you know? Like
this might sound arrogant though, but like, I don't know, to me, cars feels like a better hobby. It's like more tangible. It's like, I don't know, now I could do an oil change or like rotate a tire. It's like, I don't know, like now 10 years later, what can I do? Like maybe potentially pick the best fantasy football team. Like, you know, like how, like, am I any better for it? Like,
yeah, I know.
Did I get a skill? Like,
yeah, you're betting on the hopes and this is just my opinion, but it's like you're watching there. You sit and you watch a game happen and people play and you have no control over it, but you have control over your car and the build and the image that you're, you know,
but you're like also learning skills.
I don't even know what fantasy football is, bro. Like, I don't even know.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
But what is it though? Like
you pick a team and they assign points for like each
like a
player
real team.
Points.
Like you pick players from the league,
build your own team,
and build a fake team that's a fantasy team. And if those players score points in the real games, then you earn points on your fantasy team.
So it's like you basically make your own imaginary team. Oh wow, that's
yeah.
We were just into mountain bikes and shit. Like I don't know. Like, I don't know. Let's go biking.
I was telling the story tonight. I was one of the first times. Like there was this local car forum. It was called QCA, and this one night we went out and did a meet, and I think I made a video, and it was a really awful video. And we were all after the meet sitting in the subway, and this girl walked in that I went to high school with, and she was like, Benoit, like, what are you doing here? And it was me, and I've always been like a little bit older than a lot of the car guys that I hang out with, which is now refreshing that like Gerard's older than me and I don't feel so weird all the time. And Kevin's like my age.
I guess I should feel weird.
No, why? Gerard never question anything that you do. That's what makes all this world spin around.
Yeah, and everyone thinks I'm older than you anyway. So
yeah. And she was like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "I'm hanging out with a bunch of people that I met on the internet." And that was the case at the time, and everyone laughed, and thank God, because it was like the fucking weirdest thing. It was just like this subway full of like dudes with done up cars that decided that like we met on the internet and we should all meet and hang out in person. And then I built a ton of friendships out of that. So I don't know, man. It's fucking weird, but Satoshi, I feel like you're at this beginning of this journey that is could be very exciting. So have fun. Anyway.
I mean, he's already in it though. He's got like a backdoor pass. He's like not a groupie, but like he's already like rolling with the band. You know what I mean? So
you know, it's like the movie Almost Famous is what you're trying to say, which is a weird thing. Anyway, I didn't want to ask the question because it seemed too self-serving, but because it's like there's blogs out there that exist, and then I was going to ask Satoshi, like, did you ever read any of those, or is there any like kind of like the blog media that ever existed for you, or is that just a thing that you skip right over?
Oh, it's like, I don't know, like Speed Hunters or Super Street or like, I don't know.
I mean, like Super Street's a magazine, Satoshi. No,
but it's like, I mean, they like transition to.
No, I know 100.
He's being a jerk.
Yeah, I'm being a jerk, but because it's like it was a magazine I used to like have a subscription to, like when I was a kid. And then you're like, it's a blog, and it's like I am old. Anyway.
Yeah, that's one thing. There's like no magazines. Is there?
They're
like
all
any?
gone.
No. Print media.
Yeah, it's dead.
Yeah.
I love magazines, man. But yeah. I mean, the other thing about magazines now, dude, is they're unbelievably expensive.
Dude, they're like $20.
Dude, I buy cartoons because they brought back cartoons. So I buy cartoons for Dominic every month. And it's fucking maybe 100 pages double-sided. So it's only 50 pages. Fucking $9. And it's thin as shit, man. I'm just like, whoa, $9.
Gotta pay to play.
Well, I remember I think $9 a month is like a normal subscription fee, but
that seems reasonable.
When I used to buy magazines, they were like $5-6. I would pay $20 for like my Dory 10, my USA like membership each month was like fucking $37 for like VIP style, VIP car, Dory 10, and occasionally option.
Yeah, I mean inflation though, and you know.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like
Fred Flintstone isn't delivering you your car magazines anymore, Gerard. You know,
I just feel like $20 for a magazine, which is basically average. I mean, even fucking greeting cards these days are an minimum $6.
Ah, man, why haven't
greeting cards have always been a ripoff. And
right? But now they're like $15. You're like,
they're like $9. They can be. You gotta look.
You're like, what the
man?
Fuck?
I would like to get Gerard going on a greeting card tangent. Would be a great win. What a weird thing.
Take a photo of the well-written sentiment and like write it in your own card. You know?
Yeah.
I mean,
Kevin's got this.
Did you ever see any car? Did you ever see cars growing up that you were like, holy fuck, like I want to have a cool car? Like, do you ever see cool cars rolling around or?
I can't think of any really. I don't know. Like my like perception on cars were advanced enough to, I don't know. Like there's definitely cool cars, but I don't know if I could really like know what they were or whatever. Like I can't think of any. Not really.
Yeah.
I've already put in my head that like an algorithm made Satoshi into like a 90s JDM like car dude. Like that's the only real answer for like, it's like one time he accidentally like searched the wrong hashtag and it was just like, now I'm fully into this shit and I can't back out.
Dude, if you never described a drug addict in your life, you just did. Like, I just tried these cars one time. I just Googled it once and now I can't get out, you know? Like,
I'm done. And Gerard's not even paying attention.
I'm listening to exactly what you're talking about.
Fully would have been.
I agree. I don't know why you're so different.
All right. We could add, you want to do these questions that people have asked us and then what Satoshi's thoughts would be on them? Okay, here we go. I really got one that I think would be good because otherwise it's got to be me and Gerard arguing about JZS 161s, which we'll do another day. And Kevin can argue about it, but I know where you all stand and it hurts my feelings. So Aria, ARIA, Aria MeHR.VIP wrote, "Hey Ryan, I love your guys' podcast. It's awesome hearing car stuff from local guys while I'm working or doing prep. It also gives me tons of insight. Honestly, where to go with my build. Question for you on the podcast. More of a meme because I want to hear the UCF talked about. Why do you hate the UCF 10 so much? Once again, I appreciate you guys.
It's so high. He's got an alias.
Yeah, I was just thinking that too.
Yeah.
Made a fake account.
Hang on, he's not done. He says it helps tremendously in passing the time. Yeah. And I said, okay. And I'm going to read this question. So, why do we hate the UCF 10 so much? I have an answer as someone who's owned a UCF 10.
Answer it then, bro.
Well, do you guys want to go first?
No,
Why
you
do
go
you hate
first.
it? Well, fuck, nobody listens to this. Isn't the Dodo podcast?
People love Ryan.
Logic.
Ryan. Oh,
No, they don't.
Kevin, answer it.
I mean, I don't totally hate the UCF 10. I just think the UCF 20 is better. It looks better. It's more modern. Everything about it works better. To me, the styling of the UCF 10 doesn't outweigh any of the advantages of the UCF 20. And I also like the styling of the UCF 20 more. So it like literally doesn't win in any category for me.
How about you, Satoshi? Do you like UCF 10s?
I think they're kind of cool, but I don't think they're like ever on my radar, to be honest. Like, if the only time they were is more so like looking at buying one because I was like contemplating putting a 1UC in the Altezza. So I just wanted it for parts, if anything. Like, I don't know. It's never really been on my radar. I've just thought it was like, maybe it was a boat or whatever. It didn't really seem like a sporty car to me. So like,
it is a boat. Maybe.
And the engine can also be used in a plane.
In a boat or a
plane. Yeah. So reason to like that car. Gerard, why
I'm gonna have to agree with Kevin. Like the 10, I mean, the 20 is a sick car. I feel like the 20 has like the quintessential like big sedan styling. The 10 obviously was the first one to get there, but it was kind of like, in my opinion, perfected with the 20. I like the early 20. I like the late 20. I think they're just like those big sort of like haunches on the hood of the early 20 are fucking sick. The kind of cool like sporty-esque headlights of the late 20 are pretty cool. Like when it's slammed, it just has like a really cool look that the 10 can never really achieve. All of the aero options for the 20 are better. The engine's better than the 20. The suspension's better than the 20. The interior's better than the 20. The 20 is just such a sick car that like there's no reason you would ever want a 10 besides the fact that it was $20.
It's not like picking between an X7 and an X8.
Yeah, it's not.
There's not enough of a difference to be like, oh man, like the styling on the 10.
Yeah, it's so basically the same car, just way shittier. You know what I mean? Like,
not the same at all.
No,
it's totally the same. What do you mean?
All right, it's just funny when you say like it's the same but way shittier. But no, I get what you mean. But
it's like,
I mean, I've said it. Like, I was looking to buy LS, and I could only afford the 10. And then I looked in Japan, and for way less than I was, basically the same, but less than I was planning to spend here.
On a 10.
I got a 20. Exactly.
A late 20.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Have any of you ever owned a 10?
Yes.
You have? Yeah.
For like fucking 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
I wanted a nice daily, and it was like, so I bought one for $700 or something like that. And I drove it around for a bit, and I sold it for $900. And then I test drove a 20, and I was like, I never ended up buying the 20, but like, man, like I had buddies with 10s back in the day. That was like their mom's car or whatever. So they would drive it around all the time. And it was just like, I think the biggest thing for me is like, how the underside of it has that kind of like it curves in a lot, like on the bottom.
Yeah.
For high. And like all of the aero that I've ever seen for 10 is like, like junction produce where the sides are just straight down, and they don't like look cool. Like, I don't know. They end up looking really heavy and kind of like.
Yeah, I don't mind the junction produce kit. Anyway, I had an 11, which is essentially just a 10 with mild.
With air ride.
And recliner seats and seat massagers in the back. It was a Celsior. Yeah. Ooh, cloth interior. Ooh,
you could press the button. Did you have a sunshade in the rear window?
I didn't have the sunshade. I had the button that you could press in the back that would make the passenger seat go forward and then fold down. So it was like, fuck you, sick. Front seat. And then it came with like
a little table,
Lexus earbuds and shit that you could have in the back. Now, I respect the UCF10 because like Lexus doesn't exist in North America without that car, right? That was that was the flag that they planted, and it was like, look what we can fucking do.
I mean, it probably is the most amazing car ever made as far as that goes, for sure.
Yeah. And it's very important. It's a part of our heritage, like that's us.
Exactly.
So you gotta give it props for that.
If I was getting a tattoo, though, I'd be getting the 20.
Yeah. Those are all weird tattoos. Did I like the car? The answer is, for driving that car, I put aftermarket air ride in it, and I've talked about that before, and it was a big waste of money, and I had AME Shallons on it and shit. Anyway, did I like that car? And the answer is not really. And it was probably because about the time in my life when I got it. The tricky ass thing about having that car, especially I think, and I could be wrong, maybe I am, is that was my only car at the time. And then imagine even today, if I had that car, Kevin has a 1J Altezza and Gerard has the 1J Blit. And there's these like kind of like fast, exciting cars to drive. And then you're just like floating along on a cloud, like fucking couch. And all your friends are doing like dope ass shit in their car. And you're like, even when I had that car. Yeah. And you're like, well, I'm real comfortable and I have air ride and it can go up and down. And
that's just it.
It was like, that was the only cool thing I had about that car was I had a remote that I could like drop it on air. And it was, but like when your buddies are driving FDs and fucking S chassis with SRs and Skylines, and they're like having the most fun driving, and you feel like a 65-year-old man driving this car around. It doesn't really capture the feeling of I think maybe what we're into. I guess that's my reason for not liking that car. The Aristo then checks that box where it's like, hey, this is comfortable, but also it makes blow off valve noises and, can do dumb shit if you know how to do it. So
yeah,
that's why I don't like the Celsior or the LS. Anyway, that's my answer. I do feel like Matt asked another question, but
Matt? Jesus.
Yeah, he's always asking questions.
Yeah, Matt's like, nonstop.
Yeah, I do love it though. And it's always about getting Gerard to like rage about something, which is pretty funny. It's like, hey, can you trick Gerard into talking about something ridiculous for a half an hour? And it's like, yeah.
I was going to say, Satoshi, what are your other hobbies besides cars? And do any of your other family members share those hobbies? Because maybe there's like a link to whatever hobbies you're into to the cars.
Definitely cars is like a huge chunk of it, but so kind of like the hobbies that branch off of it. Like I started to maybe get into photography a bit. I just kind of like picked up a camera at the same time. I got a car and started shooting it and started learning about it. I also like skateboard. I was like pretty passionate about that for like quite a bit of my life, I would say. Just kind of funny. I noticed like a lot of kids from the skate park tend to grow into liking like these weird Japanese cars too. I don't know what it is about them. Like it's the styling or like just the driving aspect of it. I don't know what it is. I've noticed like a lot of those kids.
Because they don't give a shit about hockey or football. They already didn't give a shit about hockey or football. That's why they're at the skate park.
Yeah.
And now they're less at the skate park because they can have a car and they still don't give a shit about hockey or football.
Yeah. I feel like skateboarding and like drifting have a lot of crossover.
Oh yeah. I think any of those type of like action non-team sports for sure.
Here's a fun question. Photography wise, do you only take pictures of cars or do you take pictures of like landscape and like architecture?
Naked girls, animals, flowers.
I believe the term is boudoir.
You
mean porn?
I mean, to be fair, in an old episode, Gerard did say people could trade porn for like car parts or services. So,
Damn.
so he might be
When was
onto
that?
something.
Yeah,
was
I,
like
remember, I remember that one.
Yeah.
You're
Gerard,
like,
you say a
whatever
lot
you
of-
do, just do it really good.
Yeah, and trade it.
Like porno.
Yeah, you could do fucking porno. And we're like, Gerard, has anyone ever offered to trade you like porno for fender rolling? And you're like, no. Why do you anyway? Sorry. So what do you take photos of? Like what's your primary like objective for photography?
No, I definitely like landscape quite a bit too. I would say that's like another pretty big key factor. I like girlfriend's like super into, or she like studies environmental science too. So we like to go travel and explore like BC, and it's like a shame not to take photos of like, yeah, you pretty much like have to. And so having a camera, it's like pretty much a guarantee that I'm going to like take photos of like different cities, street, like, I don't know, landscape, all of it.
I feel very threatened now because that's already a better thing than like anything I've ever done. I'm always like, I only picked up a camera to take photos of cars, and then I had a kid, and I was like, I guess I should take photos of my kid forever. But it was always cars.
I have friends who are like super into photography as well. They like do it as a job, or videography as well and stuff like that. So like that definitely rubs off on me a bit to like explore outside of just shooting cars, I think. Same with like skating, shooting like videos of skating, photos, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good experience because I think there's like good lessons to learn in both of the things. And I've not learned all of those lessons, but
he's coming for you, Ryan. He's coming for you.
Yeah, no, I'm fucking done. And I think that's very valid. And then I won't air this. Yeah. And I'm not going to air this episode ever just to prove a point.
I feel like I asked a question, but like I feel like it didn't come up.
Or
what was it?
Where I was just like, yo, like what video games did you like car video games did you grow up playing? Like,
oh yeah.
Definitely.
Do you have a sim rig?
Yeah, I have a sim rig right now. So I play like I play quite a bit of like Assetto Corsa right now. I also like used to play like Forza.
Alex was saying you play Car X too.
Yeah, I play Car X as well. Those like definitely kind of got me into like the drifting a lot too, before I even had a car that could drift. And then I used to play like Need for Speed, with all the different ones, Need for Speed Heat and shit when I was younger.
What was
like
the
all
first Need for Speed you remember playing or whatever?
It's like one of the heats. I don't know exactly, but like 1, 2, whatever. I don't know how they even do it.
Gran Turismo at all or no?
No, not too much Gran Turismo, to be honest. It's like, I don't know what year those have been. I don't even know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at getting something now to drift at home, but
yeah,
I can't drift in real fucking life right now.
Because there's a distinct possibility that Satoshi might now actually be a better drifter than you.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know about that.
I mean, like, it's funny because when you ask Carter about what video games he played, you're like, you didn't play any, and he's like, I played Forza, and like, he's a good drifter. And then when we talked to Marvin is a hardcore like sim rig dude, and he's a really like he's a good driver, you know. Like,
I mean, that's the thing too, is like for me to drift a car, like when like how often do I actually drift a car? Like I don't go to any events lately. Like, I mean, I look at Paul, he's fucking drifting every weekend, every 2 weeks at the most, every 3 weeks at the most. And I'm like, I literally haven't drifted for a year again after I didn't drift for 8 years. So it's like, well, fuck, man, maybe you should do some sort of drifting, whether it be real or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So Satoshi, will you ever drift in real life?
Well, I mean, I originally bought an Altezza, and that was like the plan. But then, like, I don't know, plans changed, and then I somehow ended up with the Crowns. So I do plan to like manual swap those.
Having two Crowns is the perfect way to be better at drifting. Two automatic luxury cars and like a Subaru.
No, it's pretty bad. Like this year I've never owned automatics before, but then this year I've bought 3, like 2 auto Crowns and then like the QX4. But no, I'm once I get rid of those cars, I'll be manual swapping the Crowns and hopefully drifting them. Like I also want to kind of buy some car in Japan. I wouldn't mind going there for like a week or 2 and just like I don't know, giving the track some shit, learning
350
something.
GT.
Yeah, 350 GT would be sick. Find a cheap one. Have to do like no work and just go there and just get like seat time. That would be like totally what I'd be down to do. Just go there and.
You want to go to Japan first and learn how to drive in Japan, which is this really fucking cool.
That's not what he said.
Oh, I thought he said.
Well, I mean, kind of. Like I've already like. I've done like a little bit of like street drifting in the Altezza or whatever. Like nothing too crazy, but like definitely learned like some of the basics through that. And like I used to try to slide my Forester too in the rain, like power slide it.
You're gonna learn way faster. You're gonna learn way more on 2 days drifting on the track than you are gonna learn in like 2 months drifting on the street. You know?
Yeah, exactly. So, but once I get like a car built, I'll try to go to like the track days here. But I think like Japan would be a sweet option. They just have it like way more set up to just go there all day, every day, and just like stay at the track.
So am I still misunderstanding? Hang on. Am I still wrong? Did I misunderstand? You would consider going to Japan to learn how to drift?
Yeah, I guess I guess that you could say like I would go there to learn. Like I definitely like their style, and like I like the way they I like the Japanese style way of drifting, because I don't know, I guess like some people say there's like a North American drift and then like
there is
the Japanese style. So like I don't know, it'd be cool to go there. It gives me an excuse to like go to Japan too and like learn about my heritage more. But like really I'm just going there to drift cars. So like
that's fair.
How much I'm learning about my culture.
I would like Gerard to apologize for scolding me for not misunderstanding what Satoshi said. What if that's the right way to do it and we've all been fucking up? Like everyone's been fucking up. It's like you actually just meant to go to Japan and like fully.
Bro, I learned in the streets, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
But I mean, ages ago, like literally like 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
But imagine
a lot different back then.
Yeah, imagine though you just went to Japan and like learned how to drift, like in the motherland.
Okay, but I mean that would have been sick, except for the fact that like it would have been already 10 years into my driving career.
That's an excellent point. What is like the shit that like Gerard could get away with driving around, having a modified car, or just being an idiot and like driving like an idiot, I couldn't quite get away with, but I could still get away with a lot, which today Satoshi can't get away with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can't have a car that doesn't have a hood. Like I drove a car that didn't have a hood for 2 weeks. Like you're not gonna get away with that anymore. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
I got pulled over multiple times, like drifting legit like intersections. And then saying, "Oh yeah, like it was a bit wet, and I guess I took it a little too fast." And he's like, "Dude, you downshifted and like slid the entire corner." Like I was like, "No, I just learned how to do that like from driving in the snow. I'm from Manitoba and stuff." And he's like, "All right, whatever. Like, just don't hit anyone." It was like 3 a.m. on a Saturday night or something. But still, like if you did that shit today, man, like you'd probably be in a lot of trouble.
They're just gonna take your car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or like literally when I had the Civic, every time I drove the car was looking for street racing, like looking for someone to race. And every car that wanted to race, I would race them. Like, doesn't matter where, doesn't matter how, doesn't matter what it was, I would race them.
I love that you were that guy. It's actually kind of fun to ask you like questions of things that like are like a deal in, I would say like our
like
world.
We know all this as if it was like no big deal.
Like when you said like I don't know who Revgasm was, I was like, what the fuck, and like and you're like, I don't really know who Proceed is, but like all the West Coast drifters, but then you don't know like the Midwest drifters.
How come you don't realize? What do you how come you don't realize?
I don't know. I think it's literally just like what pops up. Like,
dude, they had their own like YouTube sponsored Realize. They had their own like when YouTube was coming out with subsections, Realize TV was like the main car subsection or something.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's just like algorithms, man. Like Ryan said, like I swear it's like that's basically what's formed me is like the algorithms. They know me better than
I mean, I think
I know myself. Like I don't know.
California's always had more predominance in like
I was
coming up.
gonna say that. Yeah.
Yeah, like Like Satoshi, you know who Risky Devil is?
Risky Devil? No, I don't think so.
That's too early, man.
But they were in a video game. They were in Need for Speed, like that. That's why I was asking. Like they're legit, like fucking.
I don't really remember the Need for Speed games that much.
No, that's fine. I'm just saying, like as far as like grassroots team, like the grassroots guys with Japanese style that made it, like Risky Devil.
Why don't we ask Satoshi, what are your like, I don't know, name 5 influences or influencers, like maybe in North America and
America,
or like a few, like I mean, just name
or
5
Japan.
Period. Name 5 period.
I feel like mainly it was like Japan, man. Like I think drifting wise, like Naoki like was pretty heavy when I was first getting into it and stuff. Like him and like Daigo Saito, I don't know. I like those two were the first two maybe that like pulled me in. I don't know. And then you start getting into like, you know, like Abu Moon or like, I don't know, like Tsuchiya stuff, like just like that kind of era, Japanese kind of style, like super hardcore shit. I don't know. I didn't follow too much North American, to be honest. I don't think. I can't think of any off the top of my head that would be like super influential. So
no, I know, and I totally get it. It's like you're looking for Japanese style, so why are you going to look?
Yeah, you're looking at the core
to North American people who are emulating Japanese style when you just look at Japanese style.
Yeah, no, I fully agree.
Also, your correct answer was Kevin Peterson and Gerard Deperot from SerialNine. They're my big influences. No, that's totally fair. Do you like use any do you follow any YouTube channels? Do you?
I guess like I do follow some, but I honestly don't keep up too much with like media. I try to have it like as little in my life as I can. But I do follow like Noriaro or like Samet. I used to watch like Adam LZ and like TJ Hunt, stuff like that. Or I used to like watch Hoonigans or Hager Garage, stuff like that. But like definitely like now in the present, like I'm pretty like just kind of in my own head for the most part. Just doing my own
thing.
Goes
to work and see Serial 9.
Yeah.
All right. No, that's fair. I totally get that. Side note.
No, I mean, I think that's a fair amount too. Like if it's like, if you're literally like dealing with car shit all day and then you go home and spend 4 hours after work swapping interiors on your car or putting in coilovers or swapping the diff, then after that, do you really want to go watch someone do what you just did for the last 18 hours? Probably
that's
not,
fair.
You know?
Yeah,
like,
no, totally. Satoshi, what would you ask people from an older generation? Like we've been around in the
ask us some questions, bruh.
Questions.
Ask a bunch of old boys.
I don't know. What did it feel like for you guys getting into the scene? Was it like, what kind of struggles did you guys have, or like, I don't know, what did you experience? Or like some big takeaways of like when you're, say, my feet now or my shoes?
Go ahead, Kevin.
I would say, like, I guess one of the struggles I would say is just like the information wasn't as easily accessible.
Right.
That whether you knew how to look for it or not, like now it's there if you know how to look for it.
Yeah, like if you're good at looking for it and like weeding it out like you are, then it's fully available to you. But at the same time, maybe there's so much information that the weeding it out might just be really difficult. Whereas like maybe in my day or Kevin's day, the only information you could find was from people that really gave a shit, because they were you know what I mean, the only ones that like cared enough to publish stuff. I mean, I don't know, because my struggles when I was young is like, there was no information. Like I would have to buy a magazine, look through the magazine in the back and stuff, and find some company. Like, for example, I had fiberglass bumpers on my Pinto, and like I had to find the company at the back of like a fucking hot rod magazine that made fiberglass bumpers for all sorts of other cars, and look in their little catalog thing and be like, oh, like 72 Pinto front and rear. Like, yeah, fucking sweet. And like, I don't know, mail them or call them wherever the fuck they were, and then like order it somehow, I guess with a credit card over the phone. Like
That's
who knows?
crazy.
You know what I mean?
Man.
And then like wait for it to come in and shit like 2 months later. I don't know. Like, I mean, now that doesn't seem so bad because COVID and everything, but I mean, like, you know, with Amazon literally arriving the next day, like that shit was unheard of. Or like if I was into said cars, like for example, Cortinas, like how the fuck you find out? You basically meet a dude who has a Cortina, and you meet more dudes who have Cortinas, and then you just like talk to them about Cortinas, and like that's your knowledge base is fucking 5 weird dudes who like don't like your car. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess when I had my Corolla and I was first started drifting, there was like one JDM shop, and they were like literally JDM as fuck. Like they would wake up,
don't even speak English.
Yeah, like barely speak English. Show up at 2 p.m. because they, you know, are on Japanese time, like trying to talk to Japan, or so they say.
Basically drinking all night.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then
what was the shop? Name names.
Annabelle. Yeah.
Okay.
And then basically like you'd be like, oh, I want coilovers for my 8.6, and they would show up 9 months later in the container or whatever, and then hopefully they'd be good, or then they wouldn't show up, you know.
Yeah,
like you just pay for parts that would just never show up. So I guess that was part of a struggle. Like
I used to I've told the story once. I wanted to buy a intake for my Mazda MX-3, and I gave them a deposit, and I swear to God I
Cannonball?
No,
Oh,
a place in Regina. I can't.
You mean Annabelle?
No, it was
Auto
addictions is what it was called, which is right up fucking Gerard's alley. Like, oh, it's like a drug addiction, but for cars.
Yeah, I took people's deposits.
Yeah, and I gave him a deposit of $90 for a Weapon R intake.
Oh, Weapon R, bro.
1992. Yeah, Mazda MX-3. And the thing never fucking came. And I'd go in there, like, if I was in high school, and I'd go and be like, oh man, like, is my intake coming? They're like, yeah, it's on back order. And I was like, oh, cool. And then eventually I just had to like cash in my deposit for this part that never came, and just got vent visors for my car because it's like, it's never coming.
Yeah, vent visors are sick though.
Yeah. The one thing that never goes out of style, vent visors. I've told this before. My first set of wheels that I bought, I sent money to a dude, I think like in the US via Western Union. So he would ship me wheels.
On good faith, yeah,
on good faith. And I was like, because I found him on eBay, and we were messaging each other. He's like, just send me the money. And then and I was like, yeah. Like my dad took me to Western Union in the sketch part of Regina, and I sent money in the hope that this dude would send me my TSW wheels that later turned out to be bent. Like, fuck me. Like, the struggle, I think, a little bit in the broad strokes are always probably the same. When you're young, you don't have a ton of money, but you probably have the time
or knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
But you have the time and the resources to like do that work. And I would argue, and I'm not trying to be condescending, but the older you get, the less of that time and resources. Mm-hmm. Like Gerard's got a whole fucking family, and I got a kid, and Kevin's just being rad and shit. I don't know, you know. Like, and the further, like in your 20s, it just feels like you can make your whole life about one thing and dedicate it. And like, I don't feel like I can do that anymore. So, like,
but it also feels like the information is a little bit easier now too. Yeah, like to do that research and like.
I mean, I was saying, like when I was, you know, I guess this is like the highest sense of the form is like, you had to go to the source. I remember like when I was building my Cortina, I wanted a crazy engine. The only reason I knew about this other engine was called a Pinto, it was a 2-liter overhead cam, was from a book written from a guy who built these race engines. And this was a thing. And then I had to look for this engine somewhere around here. And then I found one that was out of a Westwood race car on buy and sell. And I went to that guy, and he's like, I read that book, and I made this engine, built this engine to these specs. And I fucking went to the dude's house in Chilliwack and bought this engine. He had like started it up on the engine stand and shit. It was crazy. I was like, 16 years old. I'd never done anything like that in my life. And this guy fires up this like high comp fucking 2-liter race engine. And I'm just like, oh, what the fuck? Sure, I'll take it home. You know what I mean? And like, but yeah, you had to go to the source. Like I wanted suspension for my car. I had to go and talk to like a suspension guy who raced cars. I wanted fucking wheels, and I had to go to like, what's that place that's still around, Kevin? Fucking Overseas Auto.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went and talked to those guys about buying like,
I mean, dude, that's totally true though. It's like,
right?
Like to get wheels, you have to go to the wheel guy. You can't just be like, oh, I'm going to get wheels and just go on the internet and buy wheels. And they'd be totally,
there was no internet.
Totally fucking wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
I remember like, cause I used to
deal with the person who knew what they were talking about for nearly everything.
And then especially like here I am trying to build some fucking bojangled like British car with a fucking like US race engine, and all my friends are just like, I'm just going to buy a Mango that has an 18RG in it. I'm just going to build a Celica with an 18RG in it. It's like those cars like existed because like you would just go on buy and sell and be like, oh, ex Westwood race car, yeah, I'll take that one. And like I was like, that's sick, I wish I could do that. But then I was for some reason wanted to build this like other non-built car. But yeah, you would go in the back of magazines and see, like, I used to read Cars and Car Conversions or like Fast Car. They're all from England. And it's like, I would see all these sick wheels and sick like parts, like demon tweaks and stuff. And I have to call England, dude. Like I'm trying to order fucking wheels and like trying to, you know what I mean? And they're just like, oh yeah, like blah, blah. Like, I guess we can do it with a credit card or something. And it's like I'm going to spend money in England with my credit card and hope these wheels, you know what I mean? I was just like, I don't know. I couldn't do it. But yeah, there was a lot of like a lot of hard work.
I'm gonna say that's like pretty interesting though, because like I think now, like how you guys are saying, like there's a lot more information. It's like easier to research, easier to buy. I think that like gives me more time to like maybe be more hyper focused on like my goals or like my style or like what I want to get out of cars.
Yeah.
Like how I was saying, like I don't spend too much time on media these days just because like there's just endless amounts of information on the internet these days. Like I can pull up 10 cars that I would want to like have my car look like that, like the style that I'm into. I could like pull up hundreds of cars that I'm like think are my style. So like, why am I going to spend hours every night looking at the same styling or whatever? So like, I think that way I can kind of just like, I know my style or whatever, or I can pull from more and create my own like different style and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think that's like probably the biggest benefit of now. You guys did all like the hard work figuring it out and then
paved the way.
Yeah.
I actually think, and to go back to like really answer the question though, you said like, what would you expect? I actually think that like a lot of the challenges that we probably faced are in some ways a lot of the same challenges that you'll face, but just wrapped in a completely different package, you know? Like it's
like you still have to work on the car. You still have to learn how to work on the car.
Yeah.
You still have to buy the parts for the car. You still have to choose the correct parts. And it's like, it's all the same shit. It's just like the way to do it is it's up to you whether it's more beneficial or less beneficial. Like if you're some idiot on Facebook and like you bought a, JZX90 and you're like, oh, where do I get rear brake pads? It's like, well, fuck, man. Like that question literally gets asked 3 times a fucking week. Like use Google, man. Like use the search function. Use anything besides like give me the information because I'm an idiot. You know what I mean? Like
I think really like the hardest struggle is that you'll have to face one day is that I think I kind of already touched on this is one day you're gonna reach an age and you're gonna really have to ask yourself like, is this a thing that I want to continue doing and continue pursuing? And I think maybe that's the one thing that when you're young, you never really think about, but you're going to get to a point where you're like, do I keep going with this or do I stop and just like pursue the other thing that I'm totally into? And I think that'll be like, probably your big defining moment is the thing that you have to like really figure out, and that's.
No, I couldn't even like imagine cars not being there though. I feel like no matter what, every car I own is probably gonna like, I'm gonna have to pick like some kind of weird car and I'm gonna want to style it I don't see that like ever going away, no matter what it is.
You don't own 4 cars at 22 and not, you know. Like,
not. But man,
like,
I've seen some weird shit happen. So
it's possible.
So I'm saying like
it is possible,
Yeah.
Because there's a point where what we're into to some degree, reason and logic kicks in, and you start being like, I'm spending a shit ton of money on a car, or this car is worth X amount of money, and should I keep doing this? Or like,
but you can just buy a different car.
Yeah,
there's always gonna be something, right?
But we've talked about this. You have a lot of friends, and I think we all do, that aren't in the scene anymore. You know, like, so it does happen. Like,
I mean, and some of those guys were pretty hardcore at one point. I mean, like you said, like I remember obviously I'm like not an exception because I'm still in cars and I'm like old as fuck. But I mean, like, there were definitely dudes that like had parts cars and built this car and built that car. And, and now they're just like, like I just go to work, dude. I just drive my car to work. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I saw a meme today and it was Adam Sandler in Billy Madison when he's in the kindergarten class. And it was like when you're 37 at a car meet now. And I was like, that is right. Because like, we're all substantially older than Satoshi. You know, we're having the same conversation, and he is having the same the same issues and problems that we had.
I had this question that I was thinking earlier today, and it was like, well, like Satoshi, like, knowing everything you know now, if you could pick a year to be born so that you could have your ultimate car life, like when do you think that would be? Like,
interesting question.
Because like if you were 16, in the 90s, then it's like, well, maybe you couldn't afford an R32 and it wasn't legal in Canada. So, like, it's like, I don't know, maybe if you were born in 86, like when I was born, it was like, I could have bought a R32 like GTR for $6,000 when they or something, you know what I mean? Like,
we had like broken down fucking GTRs all day long at my shop.
Exactly. So exactly. So maybe it was like when Gerard was born, by then you would have accumulated enough money to like, or do you feel that like now you're in the best position, or were you born too late because now the cars are too expensive?
Shit.
Let him answer the question.
It's a deep question. I don't know. Just because like I feel like all of my experiences of like when I've been born has brought me to where I am. I don't want to like say like the 80s or something. But I think like if I was born like 5 years earlier, that would even give me like a huge gap, because I feel like I got into like the like drift culture like literally right as the market was like doubling or tripling. So if I like got in like 5-10 years even earlier, I feel like that would be like pretty good sweet spot of like still kind of retaining the same experiences like through the internet and all that. But then also like not getting the price hike or price tax of like the drift cars.
I fully agree, because like I bought that like Jay-Z Verosa for peanuts, and it wasn't even 4 years ago, or it was 2017, 2018. And it was like peanut, and you could still buy JZX cars literally like 2 years ago.
We always have that 10-year advantage to the States though.
Yeah.
Fully.
But I mean, now that the Japanese market has hiked too, it's like we don't have any fucking advantage anymore. You know what I mean?
No.
Besides the fact that the cars are legal, but that doesn't seem to really ever stop the dudes in the States, like that really want the cars. So
I kind of agree with that. I think you probably hit the nail on the head. Satoshi, it does feel like you were born maybe 5 years,
couple years too late.
Yeah. I do feel for you, because like the cars that you said like you really wanted to drive, I honestly thought like you were gonna say a Supra or NSX and all these things. I was like, you'll never have those. But then it was
you're not even reaching that high.
Yeah, it's just like an S chassis, and it's like, yeah, man, that's shitty. I'm sorry we did that to you. Like that's, I don't know. It
hasn't been all terrible though. Like I still own like Impreza WRX, like that's a pretty sought after car in some people's eyes. Like I still had an Altezza, still have Crowns.
That was the other thing. It's like, like here we are talking about all these cars that we love, but it's here's Gerard saying like, all right, well the 350Z is just a way better car. Like you know, the 18 Crown is just a better car. And it's like, well, you're of the generation that every car that you is a, you know, like a reasonable car to you is a better car than what was a reasonable car to us.
Yeah.
It's a cheaper car because it hasn't been priced out by nostalgia.
Yeah.
So like, you know, maybe you are in a better spot. I don't, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
like a G3 when you were talking about, you're like, oh yeah, high school car G35. It was like, no man, like high school car G35 was like $50,000
brand new.
car.
Yeah, nobody.
Like,
we weren't even looking at those cars, man.
Yeah,
like if you had a G35,
like,
you were like stole your mom's car or some shit, you know?
Yeah.
You
But like,
from a trust fund.
Yeah, by the time it was for you guys, that was a totally reasonable car. Like,
yeah. And I mean, honestly, that only happened like fucking last year. Like those cars were still not really that cheap. Like when you bought yours, it was like, I think they were coming down, but yours was, you know, it was like a rebuild and all this shit. But like, I think at the time when you bought yours, if you were to buy a 6-speed car, it was still 8 to 10K or something like that.
I think you could have got one for 6.
Yeah. Like probably on the lower end was 6. The average was probably 8. And then they were probably, you know, like 10, but they're still around that price. I don't think they've
like
kind of
cheap though.
Yeah. It's quite cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right?
I think it was cheaper. I think it was cheaper then than now.
Yeah.
Like now they're like, people are like, the price hike has sort of trickled down where it's like, oh, I can't get a 100, I can't get a this, or I can't get a that. But hey, these 350Zs and these G35s are supposedly pretty good. So let's fucking buy this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's interesting though that like, regardless of the age, there is this weird nostalgia for this very specific time from Japan. Because like realistically, I've always assumed, and I think the thing that you helped me understand is that I'm wrong, is that like older dudes would have nostalgia for a different set of cars. Like it'd always be like the next generation coming up. Like you would have come on here and been like, I really like the ISF. Like that's the car that I really want, you know? And it's like, nope, you're still naming the cars that like that we like,
but,
you know?
But also those, I want to say like they're not promoted as much, kind of like that same analogy as the pop song. Like what video game or what pop culture anything is talking about ISFs and G35s and I mean, fucking name a car of that era that like you could, like an M35 is basically the equivalent to a Crown, but like the Crown is popularized because it like is from that era. You know what I mean? Whereas like an M35 is kind of like so weird and like obscure that people are like, I don't know. I think it's cool. Like it's cool in North America because it was offered there and people will just fuck up any car. But like in the grand scheme of thing, is a Fuga or an M35 cool? Like 90% of the people be like, what the fuck is that thing? You know what I mean? Where like like a G35 is like kind of there. And like, you know, there's a lot of other cars like the GS, you know, like the 3 GSs and stuff. Like, are they cool? I don't fucking know. Nobody really fucks with them. There's no like aura around them, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah. I thought the aura would come with like the next generation around them. And I guess it isn't.
I couldn't even tell you what a 3GS looks like.
Right. That's kind of what I mean. It's like, and like, why is that? Just because like we haven't started looking at them yet because like they're just too far out of the realm.
No, they're just uninspiring.
Don't I really like them?
Yeah, you really like them.
Yeah, I do.
Satoshi, if you could tell your son right now what to do in his car career, what would you tell him?
In terms of like buying a car, or
in terms of anything, general? Just you got one thing you could tell your kid right now. You're like,
man, I don't know. Just like don't follow the trends, man. Just like find a car you actually enjoy and it's actually sick. I think you'll have a better experience that way. You're just gonna be paying quadruple the amount of money for a hyped up car, kind of like what G's saying, right? Like you can find all these other cars for way cheaper that like nobody just has given the time of day. Like, I don't know. Probably be the best advice to give them. Save them some money.
What do you feel the car culture is going to be in the future? Like, is like car culture for you just going to be like non-internally combusted cars? Is like are cars even going to be a thing? Like right now, the model is shifting towards like people don't own their houses; they just rent their houses. And it seems like they're trying to shift the model towards people aren't going to own their transportation; they're just going to rent their cars or take the bus, or you know what I mean? Is like vehicle ownership? Do you think that's even like a thing in the next 30, 40 years for you, or like?
Yeah, I don't know. That's definitely like a huge part of like all these dream cars and like all these other things, like why I feel like it's fleeting as well. It's like not only are the prices raising, but it feels like soon they might not even be available.
Yeah. You're literally like going away.
Yeah. So it's kind of like you kind of have to like pull the trigger now if you want any of these like sick old cars.
I mean, I think that's probably why you probably hit the nail on the head. It's probably why people are willing to pay those prices, because it's like you're either going to spend the money now or you're probably just not ever going to get one. You know?
Yeah. No.
So you're going to spend everything you have to get that car,
and hopefully it gets grandfathered in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why like I'm kind of like willing to kind of dish out a little extra money to get a 1JZ so I can at least say I had it or I have one now. That's why like I want to go to Japan and like just I don't know, drift a 350 GT just to experience it. Who knows like how long that would even be around. Like,
so you can say you did it.
Yeah, because who knows?
Yeah, I mean, fucking go to, man. I never did it, and like I've literally since I was watching the option videos in year 2000, I've never gone to Japan and done the thing that I wanted to do. It was always like, oh, I'm going to have this shop, or I'm going to build this car, or I'm going to do this thing, or I have this girlfriend, or like this always was just something. So like if you just make sure you come back to work 2 weeks or whatever the fuck it is. But yeah,
over there with some merch, man. I'll set up a booth.
I mean, honestly, we're going to Japan too. Like that's a trip we have to do. So like we should just do that.
Yeah. I'll get 350 GTs.
Yeah. Do we got anything else that we want to talk about? We went real long. I think.
Yeah.
How does Satoshi feel about the Blitz 03?
Dude, I would ask that.
I don't know. I don't really care about them too much. They're cool. They're nice. Whatever. But like, yeah, I don't know.
Are they worth $8,000?
Hell no, man. I'd rather go like dig through Yahoo Auction Japan and find a set of 3-piece wheels that look way cooler for a fraction of the price.
I wanted to say thank you to Satoshi for being on the show, fielding our questions. He's definitely a SerialNine guy through and through. I think we've mostly established that. The next time we get a young guy on the show, let's get one who does really dumb things and then go from there and doesn't like make the same like good choices that SerialNine people
Let's get a real young boy.
Yeah, someone that's real dumb and has an FRS or something.
We should actually have an episode where we just like straight roast a fucking dude. We want you on our podcast, and we're like, yeah, so why'd you pick those fucking whack ass wheels, bro? Like, why don't you lower your car, bro? Like,
dude, an hour and a half of just roasting the guest.
Starts crying and shit.
Leaves.
Yeah, just leave. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yo, I gotta go.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So,
thanks for listening.
No, I mean, that was what you said.
Oh, that's what he's gonna say.
Yeah,
I gotta go.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all right though. All right. Well. Okay.
Okay. Bye. Hey, now we're going.
Yeah. Now we're going. Bye.
My battery's about to die.
Okay. Bye.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to Serial Podcast 9.